All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of ObscuraCast. It has been a little bit since our last episode. We are going to try to pump out episodes as quick as we can for you guys. It might not be weekly, but we're going to try to do our best to keep it on a consistent schedule for you guys. Also want to thank everybody that has been listening. Like I said, last episode, we've sort of spidered into a bunch of different countries. I think we're up to like 20 or 25 plus as of the last episode, and we're getting more clicks and more listens than ever before because of all you guys tuning in and hanging out with us as we go through the episodes and stuff. So I wanted to thank you guys for that. Tonight we're going to get into some ancient relic discussion. So Dan and I, as always, Dan, how you doing?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I think we got a cool episode tonight. It's something that we haven't done before. It's not really a ranking of ancient relics necessarily. It's just sort of 5 that we came up with that are, I would say, pretty well known. If you don't know about these guys, they're pretty interesting. And we're going to get into, like I said, about 5 of them total. In no specific order, we're just going to sort of run through sort of where we ranked them as far as what we wanted to talk about first and so on and so forth. That doesn't really have anything to do with how, ancient or mysterious these are. They're just a total of 5 ones that we thought would be cool to talk about. So, Dan, I wanted to start with a couple of sort of questions to sort of set the scene for the episode. So I think the big 3 pertinent questions that we came up with was, what if history is wrong? What if ancient civilizations knew far more than we give them credit for, which we've touched on with like secret societies and other stuff that we've done on the episodes we've done on the show. I think that's a pretty cool question to sort of dig into. And then what happens when archaeologists uncover relics that completely break the timeline, and basically they create not necessarily gaps in time, but essentially they create questions about when it was found and why it was there in the first place, that kind of thing. So those are the sort of 3 questions we're going to sort of broadly touch upon as we go through the episode, and they'll sort of make sense as we go through the 5, sort of relics that we have sort of stacked for you guys in this episode. So, the 5 that we're going to do, I just want to give a quick tease to all 5. So we're going to talk about a machine from ancient Greece that acted like a computer. We're going to talk about a cloth that some believe contains the image of Jesus Christ. That's a little bit of a hint if you guys know anything about Christianity. That's a little bit of a hint for that one. Scrolls hidden for 2,000 years in desert caves. That's another sort of religious one that we're going to talk about. A stone that unlocked an entire dead language. Again, stone being the operative word. That should give you guys a little bit of an idea of what we're going to be talking about. And then a possible ancient battery discovered near Baghdad. So before we get into all of that, before we get into the episode, I want to make sure to plug the socials for you guys like we do try to do every episode. So the name of the podcast, obviously, is ObscuraCast. You can follow us on Instagram as well as x.com. And we've been sort of off. We had a little bit of a snafu with the account that we're recording on for the episode. So we've sort of figured that out. We're going to be able to put more content out for you guys, short little snippets, little videos, that kind of stuff on Instagram and X for you guys to digest. If you can't digest the whole episode, or if you want some like sort of quick and dirty points of the episode that were interesting. So we'll do that for you guys. We figured out the whole glitch. It was like not to get too much into detail, but essentially it was like an access glitch. Dan and I have figured it out, so that shouldn't be a problem anymore, and we'll try to pump those out as much as we can. So the first one we want to get into was one that I'm not 100% familiar with, but the fact that, we touched on this computer sort of piqued my interest. And it's the Antikythera mechanism that was found in 1901 inside a Roman shipwreck off the Greek island of Antikythera. So the really cool thing about this thing, and Dan, you can sort of tell me what you think about it as we sort of go through everything. Divers originally thought it was a corroded lump of bronze, and then x-rays later, I think around the 90s or 1960s, confirmed it actually had internal gears that made this thing work. And I think you and I sort of touched on the fact that it was sort of used, without getting too much into the weeds before we get there, getting ahead of ourselves. Essentially what it was both a horoscope as well as an astrological device.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that it was multifunctional as well as how intricate and sophisticated it was for the time, I think is a cool thing to touch on, at least for our first segment. So me being a computer guy, I'll sort of give my take on it last. So I sort of want to hear what you think about it. So give me sort of your idea of, or sort of 2 cents on what you think of this thing.
I think it's absolutely incredible. It just shows how advanced these ancient civilizations were thousands of years ago. The fact that it showed the eclipses and the moon phases and planetary movement, along with, being able to navigate the seas using it, is pretty remarkable. Also, like, there's half of the mechanism missing. So we just know what we know off of what we currently have. There's a whole nother part of it that's missing. So it could have done even more. over 2,000 years ago with that technology, they found like 30 bronze gears inside of this thing. That's pretty remarkable, wouldn't you say?
I would say from the bronze aspect, not necessarily, because bronze obviously was a big, component of precious metal back in those days. At least they made a lot of stuff out of bronze, armor, swords, what have you.
Well, I'm not saying from that standpoint. What I'm
I'm
saying is
saying
like
from a computer standpoint, like
Esther
this is so to sort of answer your question of why it was sort of interesting to me and why I think it's interesting is you're talking about a 2,000-year-old computer that was essentially, it was multifaceted. It didn't just do one thing. Gears back then were kind of like a missing not missing technology, but sort of a foreign technology, I would think, back in at least this day and age.
Mhm.
Gears were probably not, they were more for like, I guess if you want to call it industrial work, if they had gears at all. But I think it's interesting that it being a 2,000-year-old analog computer, so to speak, I think the multifaceted thing is they were able to find multiple instances where this thing could be useful. I think that's the interesting thing too. From a tech perspective, me being a tech guy, you want something that can do multiple things at the same time, because it not only it fixes the uptime you have to work on things, it streamlines basically usability as well as like time management and that kind of thing. So essentially you're getting more done with less. Does that sort of make
Yeah.
sense?
Oh, yeah.
So I think
100%.
that thinking, not just the functionality of the device itself, but the people that made it, knowing that it was going to be multifunctional, multifaceted. I think that's like the high level thinking that sort of is interesting about this thing. Not just the device itself, but the people that made it and came up with it and eventually put it into existence. I think that's what really intrigues me about it.
Yeah, I also think the other intriguing thing for me is just like, I don't know, growing up and learning about ancient civilizations in school, you kind of don't think about them knowing so much about astrology and phases of the moon and like all that stuff, different planetary stuff. Like, how many things did we quote unquote discover in the late 1900s that we find that, oh, like these ancient civilizations actually knew this thousands of years ago? It's just incredible because they don't have, as far as we know, they didn't have the technology that we have.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
it's really,
you think about the stuff with like the ancient pyramids and stuff, how they were able to move, tons upon tons upon tons of rock.
still don't know how they did
We
it,
still don't
quite
know how they did
frankly.
it. That's the
Yeah.
intriguing thing about it, right? Is that there's still 2,000 years later, we have no answer for it. There's no reputable scapegoat for how it was possible, right? But this thing, it was interesting to me from a tech perspective, like I said, because it was so multifaceted. It was able to do at least two things that we know of. Could have been even more multifaceted than we know about, and that could come to fruition down the road. We might figure out more things that it does later. I don't even know if they're still doing testing on it. I would assume not, but they might be. I don't know. I don't know that
I mean,
information. I don't
especially
know if you do.
the higher like technology gets that we have, I'm sure they're gonna circle back around
Like,
every
I'm
time.
surprised that's the thing, is I'm surprised maybe they have, because we know that they've done x-rays on it. I'd be interesting to learn about like laser technology or like laser etching or something like that.
Yeah.
Or something even more intricate than x-ray, because x-ray just gives you a picture. It doesn't really give you an idea of like an x-ray is great. It gives you a pretty detailed picture, but only on stuff that has density, right?
Yeah, so I wonder
So
if
we
they could
don't
use
know
like,
about anything that's in there that's not
yeah.
like bone density or metal density, so to speak. So there could
Mhm.
be other stuff inside of it that we can't even see yet. I don't know about that, but that's the other intriguing thing, is what's hiding in this thing that we haven't seen yet, because they weren't expecting it to have gears, right?
Yeah, no,
So
not at all.
it begs the question, what else could be inside this thing?
What else could it have been used for? Maybe it had
Hey, we're
more
right,
functions.
100%. What other functions could it have had besides the two that we know about?
And also, were there more devices that did stuff? Like, were there other ones? Because I mean, pretty goddamn intricate. Whoever came up with it was really smart. You gotta think they probably built more than one, you would think, right?
Yeah, because they obviously found it in a shipwreck, so it was something that they used on a ship,
Mhm.
obviously.
Yeah.
And it was used for the main purpose of one of the functions of it was navigation. Like you said, it was an astrological thing. But for thousands of years, people have used the stars to navigate in ships and people on sea and that kind of stuff. So it's not a new nuance, I guess, of how to do, or it is a nuance of how to do something, but it's not a new form of navigation. Does that make sense? Like, essentially, they would be able to use like a telescope or like a an instrument beforehand to be able to navigate and that kind of thing. But this sort of made, it was like a computer. With we have ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff now, it makes things way easier, and AI and all that kind of stuff. So think about this as like their version of AI back in the day. Now it's not the same thing; it doesn't think for itself and that kind of thing. But think about it as like, I guess, to boil it down, is like a new technology that nobody had ever seen before to do the exact same thing they were doing, just quicker and faster and more efficiently.
Like the
Right.
telephone.
Right. And
Yeah.
so like you would be able to like write a letter before, right? Now you can type a letter. Now you can do an email and that kind of stuff, right? So just think about it as like an extension of what they were already doing, but just more efficient, more fast, all that kind of stuff. So it was essentially a more efficient way of doing the exact same thing they'd been doing already. So in your view, just a couple of talking points that we want to get into too. How advanced should ancient Greece have been since they had this? Is there stuff that you think about ancient Greek philosophy and ancient Greek culture that we are sort of foreign to? Like, this is sort of like the calling card of them being more advanced than we thought. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I definitely feel that they were way more advanced than we thought. From everything that I, grew up reading and studying, they shouldn't have had this,
Because you
quite
hear about
frankly.
Greek Greek mythology and that kind of stuff, and we have an idea of sort of like they weren't this advanced from the stuff that you and I
Right.
learned. I mean, they were advanced for the sheer fact that they were able to make weapons. They were able to go into like metallurgy and that kind of stuff with, stuff being able to be replicated into swords and mass production and that kind of
And
stuff.
then,
Maybe
like,
not mass production, but you understand what I'm saying. Swords,
I mean,
it was a swords and shields kind of philosophy. This brings another piece of the pie to the table, I think.
yeah. Well, and like, they were smart. Think about it, like, they changed, like, the way people thought about politics and world government and with, democracy and all that stuff, right? So, I mean, I mean, they weren't stupid, I think. We just think of them
But do we
living
not
in,
give them
like,
enough credit, I guess is the
I don't
question.
think we probably don't. There's probably a lot of ancient civilizations that we don't give credit to.
I was going to agree with you about that. I think that's 100% valid.
Yeah, I think people knew more, were able to do more than what we currently know. And also, let's also not sit here and pretend that mainstream archaeologists and education doesn't hide shit. And there's probably a shit ton of stuff that really we know that they did, that it would fuck up textbooks and it would fuck up people's reputations because they have all these books and quotes, and basically their whole life's work would be technically wrong. I think
Well,
there's an
it
ego.
wouldn't necessarily be wrong, but definitely discredited, I think.
Yeah, and like, that's where I disagree with a lot of it, because it's like, you only know what you know at the time. Like, if we discover something new that rewrites history, okay, that doesn't discredit this guy that did his whole life's work on something that ended up not being correct.
Just
It was
missing
correct at the
knowledge, I
time.
think, is what you're getting at.
Like, okay, like, that's what it was, what we thought. Guess what? It's different, and we change it. Like, I don't think people should look at it as a negative, but my life's work doesn't ride on it, so it's easy for me to say.
Yeah,
I don't think that stuff should be hidden, and I think it is hidden for all the wrong reason. I think people's egos get in the way.
for sure. I mean, and like I said, I don't think it would be completely destroyed, but there would be a lot of people that, not necessarily the egg on the face scenario, but they wouldn't be as profitable or as prominent as they were. I
Mhm.
think that's sort of where we can land on that. As far as Rome and the knowledge that they had collapsing, as well as other machines like this, do you think they had stuff like this? I think you alluded to it before, that they probably had multitudes or a multitude of these devices or devices like this or more advanced technology than we give them credit for. Do you think that's a true statement based on this being a thing in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah, especially, I mean, and we're gonna get into it with other things on here, but, like, I think there's just too many things that have been found all over the world that is like, when Rome collapsed, we lost a lot of stuff. When they, like, the medieval times were the dark times where everything kind of just, I guess, got convoluted and reset almost. So there's a lot
You
probably
have
with
things
that
that sort of
too.
muddy the waters too, like the Inquisition, for example. I mean, we could point to a lot of different stuff that sort of has hidden. I mean, we've talked about secret societies, how they've hid information, how information has not been readily available. I mean, just within the last probably 20, 30 years, maybe 50 years at the most, we've come out with stuff that's been, like Roswell, for example, the whole alien phenomenon thing. That's now real.
Right.
Where
That's
before it
disclosed,
was a
yeah.
question mark, now it's documented history as it being, yeah, this actually happened. We covered it up for the
Right.
sake of whatever reason they want to slap on it, right?
Right, and let's not forget that the Smithsonian, which is a government-owned institution, has a lot of artifacts that are just in the basement. They just disappear. Archaeologists make unbelievable studies or unbelievable findings that the Smithsonian comes in and just it's gone.
I
So
mean,
them in the
it's not a
Vatican,
secret that people have covered stuff up. That's sort
yeah,
of what I was getting at.
in the Vatican too for religious purposes, So yeah.
Yeah, we talked about on separate episodes about the vastness of that archive, and it's kind of understood that there's stuff down there that they big air quotes, they don't want us to see or know about. But and on the other side of the coin, they're probably, if I had to sort of speculate, and you can tell me what you feel about this, their scapegoat or their reason for not releasing the information is to save us from stuff that we don't are not necessarily ready for or that kind of thing. So I've said my piece on that in other episodes. I don't know how you feel about that. Sort of give me your 2 cents on that about like hiding information for the quote unquote greater good. Is that just a cop out, or do you think there's some validity to that statement?
So I think probably 100 years ago, yeah, people probably couldn't handle certain truths and stuff like that. I think we're at a point nowadays. I don't believe that. I think people are, like the whole extraterrestrial UFO thing. People are ready for disclosure. They can handle it. I think most people already assume and believe that, we're not the only intelligent life out there and that they've been coming here for a very, very long time. That we've reverse engineered, that stuff, their technology. Who's to say that these people didn't have great technologies that, governments and the church and, hid. Maybe that's, I don't know. There's people that are skeptic of the Dark Ages even happened. Like we could do a whole episode on that. They think that that was a fabrication, and we're actually not in the year 2026. We're actually in like the 1600s or 1700s right now. So that's a whole different avenue.
Yeah, I think the also really cool thing about the 5 things we're going to talk about, and more specifically this relic in general, or this relic to be specific, this brings the whole phenomenon of the missing technological leap theory, which I think
Yeah.
is really interesting. Sort of what you're alluding to, where we could be 5, 6, 700 years behind the 8 ball right now, and we don't even know it. As far as technology is concerned, we could be, what we think is ancient, we could be the ancient civilization right now. That's what's really wild about the missing technological leap theory is if you understand how it works and why it's so, it kind of bends your mind a little bit that we could be the cavemen.
Could be.
Because
Could be.
as far back as we know, we have documented history as far back as we can go, right? Like you said, we only know what we know. So we have a beginning point of when everything started. What if it's another 2,000 years down the road that we have no idea about yet?
Right, and then we've talked about on this show several times about Göbekli Tepe and the Great
Like the whole
Flood.
time travel thing that we went over at the beginning. We did at least one episode on time travel and that kind of stuff. So, or astrological phenomenon and, burning through time and that kind of stuff, and time stands still at certain points and that kind of shit. So,
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at
it's mind bending that we could be the cavemen. I think that's where really, really twerks my jaw is that we could be completely missing. We could be completely missing the goalpost.
look at Atlantis, right?
We did an episode on that as well.
If you look at Atlantis, like, yeah, we technically probably are cave people compared to them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
From the episode we did, that was pretty eye opening as well. So I guess the debate is, and I want to get your 2 cents, and I'll let you go first. Do you think this is evidence of forgotten science, or are we underestimating ancient civilizations in general? I sort of know your answer already, but if you can go a little bit more in depth, and I'll sort of give where I stand on it too.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that we definitely think it's evidence of forgotten science because before this was found, nobody thought that they were going to find a mechanism that was from 2,000 years ago, essentially around the time of Christ, that had working gears and could, give astrology, astronomical navigation, and also, go over the phases of the moon and the whole, the hell's it called? Not the fate, not the
Like the alignments.
Yeah, the alignments and stuff like that. Like I just think that, you know, definitely some forgotten science there. But I think, like I said earlier, we think it's underestimated ancient civilizations in general. I think they were way more advanced than we give them credit for. I think they were way more than just living in stone buildings with, you know, a hammer and a chisel. I think they had a lot more stuff going on than we give them credit for. So kind of a little bit of both. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I sort of stand with you. Think for the same reasons. As far as forgotten science, I think it has to do with sort of the phenomenon that we talked about with the technological leap and that kind of stuff. Is that I've always thought that, like, wouldn't it be wild if, like I said, we have 2,000 years of history we have no idea about right now. That's always been interesting to me. That's always been probably a hard pill for people to swallow. That, like I said, I understand both sides of keeping information quiet for whatever reason, and also keeping it quiet for the reason of, you know, until we're able, like, I think I agree with you. The Roswell shit back in 1950, what was it, like 1951, 52, something like that, right? Somewhere around there.
Mm, 40,
Maybe a little maybe a little
47,
bit
I think.
earlier or
I think it
later.
was
Yeah, something like
47.
that. I think that would have been a lot because we didn't have access to computers. Like, so like in the 80s, mid 70s to early to mid 80s, I think we could have handled it a little bit better because computers were finally becoming a main, not necessarily a mainstay, but they were sort of starting to break through even in the 90s and like into the 2000s when we got internet and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That would have been a little bit easier to take back in the 40s and 50s. Yeah, I can understand it would be a little bit much.
Well, and don't forget, wasn't it like, was it World of Worlds? What play was it that that LA radio station did? It's the whole reason why there's
It
commercials on
was,
radio stations now.
I can't remember who did it. I believe it was was it
Or
Orson Welles?
it might have been because he was a genius.
I believe it was Orson Welles, and it was like a radio broadcast.
Yeah, and it was like
And they did it as like a skit.
it was a skit about an alien invasion, and people were jumping off buildings and like committing suicide because they thought that
Yeah, the
yeah.
entire country went almost into a state of emergency
Yeah,
during it.
so I think that definitely when that happened, because people were reacting so crazy and ridiculously, like, yeah, I think it was a national security issue. But nowadays, no.
Yeah.
I no. I think most people can accept it. I think most people will assume it. You know, that's just kind of where I stand with it.
Well, I know that it's a wild concept, but think about like when the iPhone came out,
Hmm.
how revolutionary it was for people to have literally everything in their pocket as far as a technological device was concerned. Because before that, when you and I were growing up, you needed 12 different, pieces of, 12 different objects to do exactly what an iPhone does. You needed a watch, you needed a day planner, you needed a phone, you needed all that stuff. Now it's all in the palm of your hand in your pocket. So imagine finding that in a medieval castle, and that's sort of what archaeologists were sort of feeling when they found this thing. So
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's an interesting piece of technology that we don't fully understand. Will we ever fully understand it? Hopefully. But I think it begs the question of how we sort of take ancient civilizations for granted, that they were sort of not Neanderthalish, but sort of like behind what we're doing now. And to make it even more crazy, who knows if we're talking about 2,000 years of history that goes even further, another 2,000 years down the road. So I think that's the interesting thing about it.
Right. Yeah.
The next segment we're going to get into, or the next relic we wanted to talk about, is if you're familiar with Christianity at all. Like I said, we were sort of teasing the 5 relics we were going to do, is the Shroud of Turin. So if you guys don't know anything about this or know what it is, it's essentially a linen cloth bearing the image of a crucified man. So that's foreshadowing what we're going to talk about. Like I said, it's a religious relic, and many believe it is the burial cloth of Jesus Christ, which is a pretty big, I'd say that's a pretty big, not accusation, but pretty big answer to a lot of questions about crucifixion and all that kind of stuff. The mystery around this thing, just before we sort of get into what we're going to talk about with this thing and sort of get each other's point of view, the image appears almost photo negative. Medieval artists have also supposedly shouldn't have been capable of creating it, and then scientists still debate how the image was formed. So, Dan, I know you know a little bit about this. Maybe you know more than I do. What do you think about this thing? Have you seen pictures of it? Have you seen photo images of it? What do you sort of think about the shroud itself?
Yeah, I've seen pictures of it. I've watched some documentaries on it. I've there's some specials that National Geographic and Discovery Channel have done, and Tucker Carlson just had a guy on think a couple month or two ago that is a specialist on studying the Shroud of Turin. I don't know with this one. I don't know. Like obviously I grew up Irish Catholic. I want to believe that it's real. I just don't know. I know recently, um, a 2006 study found DNA from diverse human populations and plants, including types from India, suggesting the cloth may have been produced there rather uh, than the Levant. Some 2026 reports, such as 2026 study using wide-angle scattering X-ray, suggested the cloth is 2,000 years old, but other 2026 analysis of threads resulted in dates matching repairs and conservation after fires in the 16th and 17th centuries. And I mean, it has caught on fire. There has been some damage, and they've done some restoration. So I think the majority of the cloth is right originally from around that time period. I mean, the image on there is. Have you seen a picture of? I mean, have you seen?
Yeah, I've seen pictures of it. I've also
Okay.
seen a couple documentaries as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's tests like you were talking about. I don't know if you touched on it, whether I missed it or not, but there's like the 1988 test that dated it to the Middle Ages and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like you touched on, there's some researchers that argue contamination skewed results. Like essentially, it's like you said, it's got multiple DNA results from multiple parts of the world and that kind of thing. So like it begs the question, like, was this thing really, what did they really use this as burial cloth? Is it has it been passed around, that kind of thing, to different museums and that kind of thing, and that's how it was contaminated? So it all begs that question and results of what this thing really is and what it was used for and what its primary purpose was when it was manufactured. So I think that's interesting to sort of mull over and sort of go to the different angles of what it could be, where it's been, the story it tells, that kind of. There's also people that are skeptics that have said that it's been repaired and altered. So I think that's an interesting standpoint from the sheer fact that like how original are we talking about with this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Has it been preserved over thousands of years? Because there's preserved, mummies are a perfect example of something being preserved and at least identifiable as a human body or human remains as a whole, not just bones or things scattered or a skull or something like that. We're talking about a full blown like set of bones here in a sarcophagus that haven't decomposed yet, right? So was it, I don't know how they would have preserved a piece of papyrus or a piece of cloth. I'm not an expert. I'm not a scientist, obviously. But that's also a really pertinent question, is how many people have touched this thing and what has touched it to preserve it in the state that it's in, right? But I think the also really cool talking points that we can get into too is the faith versus science debate. So essentially, like, do you believe that this thing is what he was buried in, or does science tell you otherwise? Where do you sort of stand on that?
I believe somebody was buried in it.
You don't think it's definitive, though?
I mean, it's got blood on there, sweat, and everything you need. And if from reading, like the one thing we're going to get into, which I won't mention it right now, but if you read the Bible and scriptures and stuff, like, they whipped him to a bloody pulp all over his body, and he was hanging on the cross, getting, even more torture from that. There would be enough blood on there, enough sweat. You would think that nowadays they'd be able to do like a DNA analysis, which that brings into like the whole angels and demons thing with like bloodlines and stuff. But I think someone was it Jesus Christ? I don't know. Hope it would be, but maybe it's not. I don't know.
So piggybacking off of the fact that it's a religious relic, and it's one of the I think two religious relics we're going to get into, one being an actual object, the other being more of a text-based thing. Why do you think they create so much controversy?
This specific topic or just religious artifacts in general?
I would say probably, you could do both. Just sort of give me your 2 cents on why do you think just religious artifacts in general create such controversy?
Because I think that if somehow it turns out to not be Christ, people think that it'll like somehow discredit Christ's existence in general.
Okay, that's fair.
I think that's a big reason why, which even if it's not Jesus,
I think it depends on where you stand religiously. I think that's
100%.
Something 100% to be fleshed out. And like, if you're a hardcore Christian or somebody that believes in that ideology, I think it definitely could discredit some things.
Yeah, but like I think there's even like for example, the Vatican has never come out and said that this is Jesus. they've never given a stance on it.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that also plays a part of like, I mean, if you're the Pope or you're one of those bishops or cardinals that live there and you're at the Vatican, like I would say you're pretty hardcore, right?
Yeah, just a little bit.
And if they're willing to say that they don't know, then I think that says something, right?
Yeah, if you're basically the extension of God and Christ, aka the Pope, then I would say you're pretty hardcore.
Yeah. So I mean, I if you're so hardcore, it's like with anything. It's with if you're so hardcore that you just people that are almost cult
I
like.
mean, let's just call it like it is before you get into that. Before you know what you're going to say, let's just call it what it is. Let's call a spade a spade. There are people that literally live and die by the Bible.
Oh, yeah,
That's not an argument. It's just a fact of life.
And they're very close-minded. Like, you can't even have a debate with them. You can't have, like, a open-ended conversation. It is, like, you're wasting your breath even trying to go down that path.
Right, 100%.
So, but and everyone that listens to the show knows I'm pretty open-minded. I'm willing to at least hear the other side.
Well, I think we both are. I don't think that's a secret either.
Yeah, we both are.
At least have the conversation. We could disagree, but that's part of what gets the conversation interesting.
And listen, like, I am 100% willing to say, if you or someone else comes on here and says something and, that can change my mind, I'll tell you. I'll be 100% honest with you. I never looked at it that way, never thought of it that way. And, if I'm wrong about something comes out where, like, it proves that, like, my theory or my stance is wrong, I'll absolutely admit that I was wrong. I have no problem with that. Some people have too big of an ego. Like we talked about earlier with egos. Some people have too big of an ego and they don't want to lose. They have to be right.
It's fair.
Where do you stand? To throw it back at you.
So going back to like the original question of why I think it's so controversial is I think we're going to sort of agree on this point as far as the shroud is concerned, because we sort of both understand religion and why it's so important for some people, but at the same time, me being agnostic, I understand that like nobody's been proven right.
Mm-hmm.
It's belief at this point in faith.
And
now you can have artifacts that heighten that amount of acceptance or heighten that amount of like, I'm going to go along with this. But as far as going along with it blindly, I don't know if I necessarily agree with all of that. I think a generally intellectual person and somebody that's thinking for themselves is more advantageous for you to go through life. We all come up with stuff that happens to us that are unexplainable. It's unexplainable, but like I said, there are certain people that point to, oh, that was God touching my life or something like that, which is fine. I have no problem with people living their life that way. I'm going to live my life the way I want to. So I think the controversial thing would come more with people that are more in tune with religion and why this would be detrimental in certain ways in certain situations. For me, I don't know if it would mean that much. It would kind of be just information to put in the mental, the mental repository. But I know there are people, and so do you, and you grew up Irish Catholic, and I grew up Episcopalian. So like I've seen what church is like and that kind of stuff, and how it has become a way of life for some people. But at the same time, I think having a shred of doubt or a shred of uncertainty and being hungry to find out what that uncertainty means is advantageous for you to go through life because it keeps your mind open. Like you said, a lot of people are very closed off with their ideals and the way they live their life. I don't think that's necessarily a great way, but that's just my opinion. So I think it also cool thing with the Shroud of Turin just being the conspiracy section, like we sort of touch on a couple conspiracy theories per episode and that kind of thing, is the conspiracy stuff is interesting because it claims the Vatican suppresses information. There's secret testing theories that probably we don't know about that could be done or have been done to this shroud that we don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, why the relic remains emotionally powerful in the first place. It's because people are so tied to this, and you can sort of give me your 2 cents too. It's so tied to the religion, and it's become such a, I guess, peak in like prominent relic in Christianity itself, maybe just religion in general, that finding out whether it's true or false could be detrimental or advantageous on both sides of that argument. So I think no matter what, you're going to have a shift in the way religion is thought about, to boil it down to a sentence or a statement. So sort of where do you stand on like the final thoughts about that? Like, do you think if it was proven wrong, it would be detrimental like hyper detrimental, and then if it was proven to be true, it was like ultra advantageous, or do you think it's somewhere in the middle? Do you think it's somewhere on like, other side of that?
Yeah. So here's my stance on the Shroud of Turin. I think that if it's disproven that it wasn't Jesus, I personally don't think it's a big deal. I think it's a bigger deal if it was ever confirmed for a multitude of reasons. Proves that Jesus existed, which if you look at other religions around the world, they don't necessarily deny that he existed. They acknowledge that he existed. There's things that we're going to talk about later in this episode that were pretty powerful backing of his existence. So I think it being proven that it was his, you gotta think, Blake, like that is Jesus Christ, the most powerful, pure person thing to ever walk this planet, right? Like he is God, right?
Well, in
To
that
these people,
religion, I would agree with you.
yes,
Yes,
yes, like he is God.
he is the
Okay,
deity of Christianity and that kind of
yes,
thing. I will,
yes,
I will level with you there. Other people, say Muslims or people that are Hindu, would disagree with you, but I understand what you're saying. From that context, yes, 100%.
and like what I would say to that is like, let's say the Shroud of Turin, people thought it was Shiva. It would be the same thing where people would be like, oh my God, like this is real. Like they really did exist, right?
100%.
So like if it's something that touched that person, that was on that person, that is the most holy, pure, a god, literally a god.
It's the prominent figure in your religion. It's what you're
Yes.
aspiring to.
And then that touched that person,
Yeah, it would
and it's,
be
it makes it very real,
100%.
and it'd be amazing. So that's kind of my
Yeah,
thought on that.
it would sort of be indescribable. Like we were talking about earlier, it'd be hard to take. Even if it was true, it'd be
Yeah.
overwhelming for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it would break some people. It would be because it was, some, you know what I mean? Like it would break some people, be like, holy shit, this is real. But you have people coming from all over the world to see this thing, the eerie expression on the figure and all that kind of stuff, and the fact that it's like photo negative and all that kind of shit. And then you have like the burned holes from like historical fires and all that stuff. So pretty prominent relic. I mean, like you're saying, it's probably up there with like the pieces of the cross at the crucifixion site or that kind of thing, or the burial sites that I've been to Israel to see personally, which were pretty incredible. All that kind of stuff, walking the station to the cross, it becomes part of that allure, right? It becomes another piece of history that is there in front of you. You can touch it, smell it, taste it, all five senses, all that kind of shit.
Yeah, it's different reading it. Like it's
Like if you've
it's
never,
like
I will say, if you've never been to Israel, even if you're not religious, it's phenomenal. Like when I went to see all of that stuff, I can tell you for sure. Not only was it like life altering because it's stuff that I've read about and I'm there literally 5 feet in front of it. Because there's some of the stuff obviously you can't touch, it's either under plexiglass or whatever. But like the in the Bible where he was captured and arrested.
yeah,
I stood in that thing.
Yeah.
I stood inside of it. I was in the thing, like I was surrounded by the trees and shit. I was there. I was standing inside of it. It's insane.
Did you feel anything?
I mean, I did. I sort of felt like I guess what I felt was like sort of like a out of body experience thing where I was like, holy shit, I've read about this and I'm literally staring at it. Like I can smell the air. I can you know what I mean? Like there's rocks under my feet that I can feel and my weight is shifting and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, we want to talk about being present in a moment. That's sort of what I would boil it down to. Like we're never really present, right? We're either thinking to the future or the past. We're never really in the moment. And when you're in the moment, it kind of throws you for a loop.
Yeah. I mean, that's like when I went, I've traveled a little bit too and going to London and being at the Tower of London, like you read about stuff, you learn about stuff in school, but when you're actually standing in the courtyard where like kings and queens were beheaded, and like
it throws you.
It's shit that you've read about, or like Versailles. I've been to the Palace of Versailles. Like you walk down the hall of.
Well, that would be wild. You talk about a big place. Holy shit.
You walk down the Hall of Mirrors, and dude, everything's gold. And you walk down this, and it's like these people were living in this, having their parties and orgies and just spending all the people's money. You can totally understand why they would have a revolution and kill them and overthrow them. 100%. You totally understand why. Like, the opulence is redonkulous.
Yeah, it's like, why are we losing so much money and everybody's poor? Just look over to the west over there. See that big palace right there? Yeah, that guy.
You can't do that whole property
There's no way you can
in
do
a
it in a
day.
day. There's no
You
way.
can't do it in like 3
Not a
days.
shot. Not a shot.
It takes like a week to do everything. The gardens alone. Like I was in the building, we did like a portion of it. We didn't do the whole building, but like you look out and you see the fountains and the gardens, like you literally could do a whole trip, just a whole educational, trip, vacation, whatever you want to call it, just there. That's not including like going to the Eiffel Tower. That's not including, going to Notre Dame, which we went to. Like standing and going and seeing Notre Dame, and this is before it had the fire and burned down. Going there and seeing that and being in there was like fucking crazy.
Yeah, we
You think
did.
like,
So when we went to Israel, remember I went on that basketball trip?
yeah,
We did like I think we were there for a month or 2 months.
mm-hmm,
And we did like 4 or 5 trips. That's all we did. Because the main portion of it was to get scouted for basketball when I played overseas, obviously. But yeah, within a month or two, we did like 4 different trips.
yeah.
And
I mean,
we spent the whole day there, sometimes 2 days. And we still didn't see everything.
right.
Like when we went to Old Jerusalem, we probably saw about 1/8 of what we could have saw if we'd have stayed there for like say 6 months or so.
I mean, what's incredible is like if you ever get the chance to go to Europe and go to like you were in Spain. Did you ever go to any of the
Yeah, I
old
went to
cathedrals?
Granada. I went to
So you,
Granada.
so when you stand in those cathedrals, it's like, yeah, they built this because like this
Well,
is how
that was
powerful
like
this is how powerful that the religion is. This is how powerful Christ is. Like like what they built and the intricacy, the fucking intricacy in everything is amazing.
Well, that's like when I went to the 2 burial sites where he was. One was in easily the most ornate church I've ever seen. The fucker
Right.
was beautiful. Like there was ornaments around everything. It was huge and the place was massive and just decked out, dude.
It's
Like
humbling.
it was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like not just the architecture, but just the amount of like ornament and just traditional stuff and all of that shit. It was just like, holy crap, dude. Like this is like, you know what I mean? Like it was overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the thing I
Yeah.
told you about where you had to crawl into the burial chamber,
Yep. Yeah, I've seen that on TV.
that was wild. Cause you go through it might be a 6-foot tunnel,
Mm-hmm.
like carved into the burial site. When you get in there, it's about the size of my desk. It's not big. It's maybe
Wow.
6.5 feet long.
Yeah.
But it's just like you look at and you're staring at this like stone slab, and it's like, dude, there might have been the body of Christ here. Like
Pretty powerful.
like you're just sitting staring at it. Like I have pictures of it on my phone still.
Mm-hmm.
Because they allowed you to take pictures inside. You couldn't touch anything once you got in there, obviously, other than crawling through the tunnel. But yeah, I have pictures of the whole church and like a video of it. It's crazy. But I think that's one of the cooler ones as far as religion is concerned. And we're going to get into another one at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be false. It could be true. And I think either one would be pretty overwhelming for a lot of people for different reasons.
What about for you personally?
Me being agnostic, would I think that it wouldn't really change anything for me. It'd be a cool thing to know, though. I don't think it would be overwhelming for me.
Would there be not necessarily overwhelming, but would one outweigh the other? Like, would it be like if it comes out where it's not true, would it be like, and then it's true?
I think it being validated would be more crazy for me, because right now we don't know, and not knowing is basically, you know what I mean. It's kind of the same thing for me as it being not that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like that's basically where my
It wouldn't
stance
really
is,
change
right?
anything if it was
Yeah.
like, this is false. It's okay. So we're right back where we started because we
Right.
didn't know in the first place. But I think, yeah, it being real or being validated would be a lot more impactful for me personally. Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
Like I said, me being agnostic, it wouldn't really change my perspective if it was false. I'd be right back where I started. But it being true would be pretty cool. I think it would be cool for a lot of people, but me personally, would it change my perspective on life? Probably not. It'd be one more drop in the bucket as far as people in Christianity for me. It's one more thing to make it valid that he was a real person. Now, the whole divinity thing, you probably could make speculation for the rest of our lives, at least, for whether or not that's true or not. But was he a real guy? Was he a real person? I think that would be cool to know. But the whole thing, I think he was a real person. Now the divinity thing, you can make a whole separate episode on whether that's true.
Mm-hmm.
but was he a real person that did great things? I think that's valid. I think that's fair to say. But I also want to make sure you guys know to, before we get into our next segment, we're going to talk about another one here in a second. Make sure that you guys are following on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts. We're live on there for both platforms for ObscuraCast. So if you guys are listening on one or the other, we appreciate that. But if you listen on both, it gives us a lot more traction as far as viewership is concerned. So wanted to plug that real quick. I mean, it really helps us as far as getting the show out there to more audience members and that kind of thing, and sort of spidering into new segues of like countries and things like that we were talking about at the beginning of the show. Segment number 3 is one that you and I sort of have heard about. If you haven't heard about this thing, I'd be very surprised. As far as the audience is concerned, is the Rosetta Stone. This thing is basically what helped archaeologists as well as fact finders and linguistic people to be able to differentiate dead language. It was founded by the French and French soldiers in Egypt in 1799. And I think what's cool about this thing is why it changed everything is it contained the same text in Greek, Demotic Egyptian, and hieroglyphics. So you're talking about 3 languages that not a lot of people, or if anybody, knew about or was able to read or decipher. And now this thing was able to decipher all of this, and we have a whole new bunch of information, infinite amount of information, God knows probably, about these civilizations and sort of what they did and how they sort of operated. How do you feel about the Rosetta Stone? Where do you think it ranks as far as the 3 we've talked about? So
Pretty high up there. So I've stood like a foot away from it. I've been to London and I've seen this thing in person. I've read about it. My dad, obviously, he was big into ancient Egypt and stuff like that. And they could not decipher hieroglyphics for a very long time. Couldn't do it. And this actually just blew it open. They actually had a translator now where they could decipher all these hieroglyphics and ancient Egyptian language and stuff. So it completely changed the course of our understanding of that history from that time period, because you got to think, like, these were just these gigantic pyramids and structures that were in the desert and no one knew really what the hell they were. So, I mean, it blew open the door on our understanding on ancient Egypt. So I put it, I mean, I think all the things that we're talking about here are pretty important, but I would put this definitely ahead of the Ethicura mechanism.
okay. So you think it sort of sits right around or a little bit above the Shroud? Or do you think the Shroud's more important? I would venture a guess that you probably agree with me on this, that because we don't know what the Shroud is, we know that it's something. The Rosetta Stone has been put to use in functionality.
Yeah, I think this would probably be...
You think it would be above?
Like, taking religion off to the side,
right?
I would say this is above. Now, obviously, like, the Shroud of Turin comes out where, like, it is, like, then that would probably overstep this one, but I think for just how important this is to archaeology and fucking ancient language, everything, I'd put this definitely up there, probably one of the most important archaeological finds for ancient times. Yeah.
If you're talking about something that's applicable, I think not only is it interesting and it's ancient and all that kind of stuff, but it's been applied.
Mm-hmm.
I think this would probably be my number 1.
Yeah.
As far as the totality of the relic and what it's been able to accomplish, it's been documented. It's real. You can touch it. Well, not touch it. You can see it for yourself, and it's applicable to something that we've used to find out more information about something we had. Without this, we're staring at scribbles.
Yeah, 100%. And like, they're still studying it, parts of it. It's actually like, if you ever get a chance to go to London and you go to the, museum there, you definitely want to check it out. It's awesome. It's one of my favorite things. It was on my bucket list to look at when I knew I was going. It was just, again, like we've talked about before, you read about this shit in history books, you learn about it in school, but then seeing it in person just hits you differently.
Well, I'm going to ask you the same question you asked me about the religious relics. You stood there and saw it. I've never seen it in person. I've seen pictures and I've seen documentaries and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to turn the question back on you. Did you feel anything?
I felt how much more powerful and how much meaning was behind, like how.
So you understand what I'm talking about when I said I'm present right now. Like, I'm here. I'm not thinking about the past. I'm not thinking about the future. I'm thinking about the fact that, holy shit, this is it.
Yeah. Now, like, this isn't a place, it's an object, so it's
Well,
a
you
little
understand
different.
what I'm
Like,
saying, though.
if I
It still
like
applies to the
no,
same thing.
it definitely 100% applies. I mean, like, for me, I want to not now because of there's too much fucking conflict going on in the Middle East, but, like, one of my goals in life is to go to Egypt and go to the pyramids and go to the, the different temples and stuff. Like, I wanna go do that. Like, my mom and dad went, they took pictures and videos, they talked to me all the time about how amazing it was. Wish I could go. That's on my bucket list of my life. Definitely probably, like, top 3, 4 places, things I wanna do. But no, the significance is insane.
So I think also the really cool thing, not only is this an applicable stuff to just daily life or like reading and stuff like that, but it also gave us a lot of historical impact as well. This thing opened the doors basically to Egyptian life in general. It wasn't, like we said with the Antikythera mechanism, it was multifaceted. So it opened the door and gave us an understanding to pharaohs, religion, Egyptian politics, tomb inscriptions, where people were buried, directions on where people were buried, how they were buried, everything about Egyptian culture, Greek culture, and then Demotic Egyptian as well. So not only did we get hieroglyphs, we got Demotic Egyptian culture figured out, and then we got the Greek philosophy, or not Greek philosophy, Greek culture figured out as well. So
And you know who we have to thank for this?
the British.
No.
I'm kidding. It is in the British Museum,
It's
though,
in
just
the
for
British
context. It's in
Museum,
a
but
British museum. So that's another thing we're going to talk about here in a second.
do you know who we can thank for its discovery?
Well, it was founded by the French.
So guess who?
Napoleon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it was during his campaign. It was French officer Pierre Francois Bouchard. I definitely
Okay.
fucked his middle name up or whatever, but
French is
he'll get
tough.
over it.
French is
Yeah,
a tough
well,
one.
I always mess that up, right? Well, shoot. Oh,
Foliage,
so
right?
that's a inside friend group joke that no one will understand by Blake, Paul, and Brennan.
So there's an ethical discussion to be had as well, as I sort of alluded it with the bad British Museum joke. Do you think
I
the British
appreciate it.
Museum should return it back to Egypt, or do you think it should stay where it's at, having seen it?
Yeah, I think they should return it.
Where do you
I
think
think
it should go? Cairo?
it should go to the fucking. Speaking of Cairo, have you seen the new Cairo museum that they fucking opened?
No, I just know about it. I know it's
My,
it's the most prominent
it's.
one, at least in Egypt, if not
I
that
mean,
part of the
well,
world.
they just opened. I think it was like last year. It's amazing
I can imagine it's
from
probably
what
on
I've
the same
seen.
sect as like the Louvre or something like that. It's probably about the same.
I'll pull up
As far
some
as allure
pictures.
is concerned, I bet it's probably the same tip.
I'll pull up some pictures. It's pretty incredible.
But so you think it should be returned? Why do you think it should be returned, having seen it?
Yeah, because I think that it's such a big part of that, area and culture
I
and
think they
stuff
should
like
have
that.
ownership of their own shit, basically.
Yeah, I mean, but like, all right, I can play devil's advocate. Like,
this is interesting though. If it was founded by French soldiers, how the hell did it end up in Britain?
probably when Napoleon fell,
Oh, you think so? Okay, that's fair.
maybe. I mean,
That's speculation,
I
probably, but
can look it up.
as far as the archaeological debate and that stuff, whether things should be sort of left as they are and some things should, remain illusory to us, or do you think it was good to have the information, or do you think we should have never found it?
No, I think it was good. I think it was a good find.
I
It
agree
was
with
something
you.
that
Just
absolutely.
wanted to hear your 2 cents on it. That's all.
I mean, just the educational standpoint of it and, being able to understand the hieroglyphics so you can really appreciate those temples even more than just them being big, to actually understand the stories and what they're telling. And, also think about it, like being able to decipher the hieroglyphs, we can tell what king and what dynasty it's a part of. So,
So you think
what
the
do you think?
information's? I think the information. I'll sort of side with you. I think the information's more important than not having it, no matter what
Yeah, I
it
mean,
is. Like you asked me about the shroud, right?
yeah,
Either way, it would be useful information.
yeah,
Whether it's true or false, it'd be useful information.
yeah. I think this
Now,
is
would it be
huge.
detrimental or advantageous? But that's my point, right? Is I think having the information, I think having the intellectual property of knowing what it is and what it was for and that kind of stuff, I think that's advantageous no matter what the information is. That's where I stand on it.
All right. So, with that being said, would you say that was it better finding this or was it better finding the shroud? If the shroud
Well,
ends
I
up
already
being.
said the shroud, we don't know necessarily what it is, what it
So,
was used for, all that kind of stuff.
what
With
if it.
this has been But that's a loaded question because we don't have that information.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's true.
This is something we know works.
Oh yeah.
We know
Yep.
it works. It's been applied. It's for sure. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the difference, is that the Shroud of Turin is still a fucking mystery. We have a couple scenarios what it could be, but we don't know
Right.
definitively who wore it, what it was used for, where it was used, how it was manufactured, any of that. It's all
Right.
speculation. This is proven fact. It's true. This 100%, I think Rosetta Stone, other than maybe the next one that we're going to talk about, this is probably, you're talking about something that's been used and is applicable and true, and it's not up for debate whether it works or not. It's been proven. It works. You know what I'm saying? So that's my point, is if we're talking about usability and something that has the illusory of stuff we're talking about in these 5, this is the most probably prominent one out of the 5 because we've used it. It's been applicable and we've found out new information we wouldn't have otherwise because of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just to let you know, Britain ended up with the Rosetta Stone as a direct result of their military victory over French forces
So
in Egypt during the
they basically
Napoleonic
captured it.
Wars.
They captured it. Okay, that makes more
Yep.
sense.
So that was in 1801.
Interesting.
So
So
that's 2
yeah,
years
in
later.
that context, they fucking stole it.
Mm-hmm.
So that I 100% agree with you that it should probably go to Cairo. If I had to say anything, that's where it should go.
So this is crazy. Everybody listen to this. The transfer occurred through a series of key events. The French discovery, Napoleon Bonaparte's soldiers discover the stone in 1799 while strengthening a fort near Rashid, which is now Rosetta. Military defeat in 1801, a combined British and Ottoman force defeated the French in Alexandria, the Treaty of Alexandria. Following the defeat, the French surrendered under the Treaty of Alexandria, also called the Capitulation of Alexandria. Article 16, a specific clause in the surrender agreement, Article 16, stipulated that all French collections, in quotations, of antiques, including the Rosetta Stone and several other artifacts, be handed over to the British as property of the Crown. Arrival in London. The stone was transported to Portsmouth, England, on a captured French frigate. In February 1802, it was presented to the British Museum by King George III later that year. Physical evidence of this capture still remains on the stone today. 2 white inscriptions on its side state captured in Egypt by the British Army in 1801 and presented by King George III.
So essentially, this is what I sort of boil it down to if we want to talk about something at least in American culture or people that speak English. Think about the Rosetta Stone as like a dictionary.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
You get what I'm saying? How prominent and applicable a dictionary is even today. You can go into a dictionary and find words that you've never heard of, ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even know they exist or what they're used for.
Well, that's why
It's the exact same applicable piece of information that the Rosetta Stone is for these cultures. It's a dictionary.
That's why that language learning software, Rosetta Stone, that's why it's named Rosetta Stone. You can take lessons to learn languages from all over the world.
It markets itself.
Yeah.
But as far as our next one that we want to get into, but I think that one is probably my favorite out of the 5, at least so far.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of how the way you can apply it to something and it's already been proven.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it even more amazing than stuff that we don't know about. So this next one we want to get into is sort of your bread and butter. It's not really mine. Is the Dead Sea Scrolls. Just to set the scene for what these are, and then I'll let Dan sort of take the lead on this because he knows a little bit more about it than I do. So it was founded by shepherds in caves near the Dead Sea in 1947, and it was hidden in jars for nearly 2,000 years, these different scrolls and papyrus scrolls and that kind of thing. They contain biblical manuscripts, apocalyptic writings, and the community rules for ancient Jewish sects. So Dan, I'll let you sort of get into why they matter, and then we can talk about some talking points that I have that I want to sort of get into. So I'll let you sort of go from there.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of these were also destroyed. So when they were first found, they were found by the story that I heard of how they were found was kids were throwing stones up in these caves and they heard something break. So then when they went up there, they found these clay, I guess, these clay
like ornament
tubes
jars
or
or
whatever,
like, yeah, like,
jars,
yeah.
whatever, yeah, that these were in. And originally, when they found them, they were using them to keep themselves warm. So they were lighting them on fire. And I guess somebody in the village told an outsider about it, and they went and they were like, "Holy shit, yeah, we gotta take these." But they're a collection of over 900 ancient manuscripts, including the oldest known copies of the Hebrew Bible text discovered between 1946 and 1956 in caves near the Dead Sea. They're dated from around the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE. These documents provide unparalleled insight into Second Temple Judaism and the origins of Christianity, with most housed today in the Shrine of the Book in Jerusalem. So there is basically a museum, a whole building that is specifically for the Dead Sea Scrolls. They're fragments, a lot of it. Like, we hear the word scrolls and you think that they're just like they're in
So
actual
is this
full
huge
intact.
piece of paper under plexiglass and shit like that?
Yeah, they're like literally just pieces of fragments of these scrolls that they've had to piece together and stuff. So there's like between 900 to 1,000 different texts, including biblical, apocryphal, and sectarian documents like the community rule. What's really sets this apart, though, is the Dead Sea Scrolls are a first-person account, first-person view. That's what's different.
So
That's the
essentially,
significance.
if nobody knows, the reason why that's important is because the vast majority, if not all, of the Bible is third person.
Correct. So this significance is first-person view.
So essentially,
That's the big
somebody
thing.
that if you want to keep it in the weird realm, essentially, this person is going through all of this.
Yes, they saw what they were
lived
there.
it.
They were there.
Yeah, they lived it. So essentially, it's a journal. Essentially,
fragments from every book of the Old Testament were found except for the book of Esther. The Great Isaiah scroll is among the most well preserved.
I have a question for you. Is the Book of
Yeah.
Enoch in the Dead Sea Scrolls?
That's a great question, and I don't know that, and I should look that up.
So I know you and I have talked about that because that was a firsthand account of alien abduction, correct?
Yeah, if you break it down, it's essentially like an abduction account. Yeah.
So I wonder if that's in there somewhere. That would be interesting to find out. But like you said, it's some of the oldest biblical texts ever found. They changed the understanding of early Judaism and Christianity and all that kind of stuff. So there's a couple other talking points that we want to get into other than just the context of what it is and what it was sort of how it was found and why it's important. Is we wanted to sort of talk about the why they were hidden. Dan, I don't know if you want to sort of speak to the fact of why they were hidden, why do you think that they had to find these, why they weren't just a part of the Bible or religious texts in the first place?
Well, if you look at
Because
history,
the only reason I asked that is because you know more about it than I do. So is there any, other than the Book of Enoch that you've told me about, is there any other stories in there or firsthand accounts, because you said it was written in first person, that are controversial, I guess is the best way to put it?
Well, being Christian in general, especially in the Middle East, there was a lot of persecution that went on. A lot of, if you were a Christian, like, think about it, like, Christians had to revert and hide in caves because you were going to be killed. It was against the law. You couldn't be a Christian. So that's, I think, the big reason why. I think somebody put these away to preserve and to come back later, somebody find them, whatever. I mean, I don't know.
You think it was like a trail of breadcrumbs type scenario?
Yeah, like, hey, we're going to hide these here, and hopefully one day somebody finds this.
Well, that brings up the other question or the other talking point, and sort of segues into it. So, like, the fear of like Roman invasion. Do you think that this was like, holy shit, they're going to kill everybody? And
yeah, that's exactly what
we have to preserve what really happened and put it away and hide it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like,
yeah, I think
as more of like a fleshed out answer, do you think it was like a
last ditch effort to save?
Well, not necessarily just a last ditch effort, but also like, they're going to destroy everything. We have to preserve what really happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and then definitely, I mean, like, think about the Library of Alexandria and how much knowledge was lost
100%.
there.
I was actually going to allude to that. You beat me to it, though. But yeah.
Sorry.
No. I mean, it's 100. It's fine. But like the Library of Alexandria, or like the Alexandria like scrolls and stuff they found from that whole time period, or even like the like, for example, a modern day thing, if it was cracked open and everybody knew everything about it, think about how much more information we'd have about everything from the Vatican archives. We already touched on the fact that a lot of it,
yeah.
the vast majority, probably, 7/8 of it, if we want to do a fraction, is probably completely foreign and we have no idea what's in there.
Yeah, and I mean, you got the Ethiopian Bible, which is the oldest Bible in the world that's locked away in a church in Ethiopia.
But like, that's my point, right? Is that
Yeah.
like, there's certain stuff we talked about, cover-ups and all that kind of thing. Do you think there's stuff within those texts and those objects and that kind of thing that we're not ready for? It would be catastrophic whether it was good or bad.
I think they portray it that way. I think it has more to do with money and power and control.
Okay. That's a fair argument.
Think about how powerful the Vatican is. I mean, it's a
It's its
sovereign
own
city.
sovereign state.
Like, it's
not even a city. It's its own state.
It's got its own
governs
bank.
itself.
Yeah. Like,
you set foot inside of Vatican City, you're no longer in Italy, brother. You're not in Italy anymore. You're not in Rome. Doesn't exist. So you bring a law in Vatican City, it's, well, bro, you went across the border, dog. I don't know what to tell you.
Right. Just to let everyone know, did some research, and according to Google's AI, yes, several parts of the Book of Enoch, especially one Enoch, were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls.
So that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So I was right. So kudos to me. Pat on the back.
The Book of the Giants specifically.
Okay. That was like the account that we talked about.
The Nephilim.
Yeah. Yep. So the conspiracy theories, obviously, that like we've talked about throughout the segment so far, claims of hidden scrolls, stuff that people weren't supposed to see, or that they were sort of documenting what really happened and that kind of thing. Then we had the suppressed gospels that we talked about, Secret Vatican Archives discussion like we just had. Like, it's all sort of ties into the illusory of what these things were. Are they true? Is it just part of something more broad, or all that kind of stuff? But I think also the Council of Nicaea is an interesting topic to get into too, where certain gospels and certain things were scrapped from scripture. Essentially, they were taken out of the text that people read now, which is the King James Bible. That's probably the most prominent Bible that anybody in Christianity or anything like that is following. But I would have to suspect that there's some stuff in the Council of Nicaea, whether it was part of the Dead Sea Scrolls or something completely different that we don't know about, that was completely 86 and nixed from the Bible in general or Christian text. And just to close out the segment, sort of, what do you think about that? Do you think that's a valid statement, considering that that's what the Council of Nicaea was for? Where do you sort of stand?
Yeah, I mean, they had an agenda, and they kept certain things out that didn't fit their narrative, like the Book of Enoch.
That's crazy. That's like a piece of information. Like, I just purely guessed and speculated that it was
right.
Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah,
it's first person. It makes sense. I could have been completely off base and completely wrong.
So the Book of Enoch is in the Ethiopian Bible. It's in the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's several books that are in these original Bibles that, they kept out. And they kept out for a reason. I think we've talked a lot about like ancient astronaut theory here. And I think that, like, if you look at like the miracles that Jesus performed, and we can even go into like Shiva and Muhammad and all these other deities. Well, we've done enough episodes on here that there's enough pyramids, there's enough ancient stuff that other civilizations also believe in, like sun gods and all sorts of other shit. Where they're all pretty much
anybody that's not monotheistic. You're talking about multiple people or multiple entities doing different things. Whether you're talking about Native American culture, whether you're talking about Greek, Roman, Hindu, whatever.
That supposedly never met each other.
Right. But people that are monotheistic, we have one people that are monotheistic. I don't say we. People that are monotheistic, they have a central figure. Right? That's what monotheistic means, or monotheism means in general, and to be specific. Polytheism is exactly what we were just speculating about, is the Native Americans, the
Egyptians,
I think even Chinese culture as well.
Chinese, yeah. Yep.
Native American cultures, Greek cultures, Roman culture. Like, you're talking about multiple gods or deities doing multiple things or responsible for different things.
So with that being said, they're doing these incredible things, right? If you have the Book of Enoch, which is essentially a abduction story from a UFO and aliens, could Jesus be an alien? Could Muhammad be an alien?
Well, I've already made that speculation. I did it on a previous episode. I said, what if he's just a higher being? He's touted as a higher being. He's everywhere. He's omnipotent. He's everywhere. He's a fucking trinity, for God's sakes. Okay? He's multiple things at the same time. All right? So what's not to purport that or put that towards polytheism?
Yes.
What's the difference? He's multiple things at the same time. How is that not polytheistic in the same breath? Does that sort of make sense?
No, it makes sense.
So like my argument is that what if it's all part of the same recipe and it's just a different cook? It's the same thing, just different cook.
We're arguing over...
It's semantics.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then that's been my problem
and that's fine. If that's how you want to live your life, that's fine. If that works for you, that's fine. But being agnostic, I'm essentially polytheistic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in one thing doing everything. There's multiple scripts at play. There's multiple things happening all the time. It's kind of an out-of-box way to think about agnosticism, but I don't believe in one central thing or one central something doing everything. Everything's a part of everything.
Here's my question to you also. Like, tell me the difference between a prayer and a magical spell or incantation.
There isn't.
It is words
it
that
has
give
a
off
mantra.
vibration.
It's essentially you're talking about a mantra.
Like
making something happen because of what you're saying or the mysticism behind what you're saying.
And the belief makes it happen. Right?
100%.
For both of them, the prayer or the magical incantation. So what if they're the same thing?
But you could also, if you want to talk about an incantation, we're talking about a recipe, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between a recipe and a prayer?
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Well, and words are very powerful, right? Like vibrations, frequencies.
And that's you're getting more into where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in stuff. I believe in nature. I believe in things being connected. I believe everybody is on their own frequency and we all have an above frequency that nobody can muster the thinking of that connects everything. So if you take Christianity, for example, if you're a Christian, everybody believes in God, right? There's your common frequency. Do you get what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's all about moment. It's all about energy and all.
So,
and frequency and all that. Yeah.
What's the difference between me thinking about a nuclear reaction or something like that, or something that provides energy or puts energy into the universe? It's essentially what you're talking about with any religious sect you can think of. Because they're the reason that everything happens. And I told you before, this is the other thing I'll allude to. Energy is never lost or destroyed. It's merely transferred.
Yep.
So what's the difference? There is none. But everybody's so hung up on what they believe that they can't get past that. They have to point it to something physical. It doesn't necessarily need to be physical. It's energy. No matter what it is, whether it's physical, metaphysical, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's energy. So that's sort of where to boil it down, this is cool, right? But this doesn't necessarily tell us anything definitive. It's all based on speculation, depending on what religious sect you're a part of. This could mean everything to you or nothing to you with the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's the same question you asked me about the Shroud. It's perspective, right? So essentially, you're talking about, do I believe it or do you believe it or do we both not believe it or is it a mixed bag? It's interesting.
I think these, for me, because they are written in first person, hold a little bit more merit than the other ones.
You think it's more weight? I think it's more weighted in the positive direction as far as being like definitive.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that. A first-hand account is definitely better than sounding like you're reading a story.
Right.
I will tell you that.
Yeah, that's kind of where, you know what I mean?
Like you and I have played our share of video games. First-person game always feels better than a third-person, right? Because you feel like you're actually going through it. So I completely agree with you there. Last segment I wanted to get into is one, again, that you know a little bit more than I do about. And we're going to talk about the Baghdad battery again, just to set some context and some foreshadowing and that kind of thing. So it was a clay jar, copper cylinder, and an iron rod. That's essentially what they found. The big question, was it a storage container, a religious object, or an ancient battery? So I'll let you sort of segue into this and sort of give me some context on what you know about it, and then we'll sort of talk on from there and get into some talking points.
Yeah, so those items, they can produce a small amount of electricity from 0.4 to 1.1 volts when filled with acidic liquid, so it was likely used for ancient electroplating or medicinal shock. I think it's interesting because, again, they have electricity, like from what we learned in school and stuff, like these people had, flames, they had torches, that was it. So how much did they really have as far as technology? It's a hell of a find, and like acidic-y, like think acidic, like what did they have there
Essentially, you're
that
talking
they
about
could
a very
they
primitive battery acid.
well, what's acidic? What are some things in your everyday life that could have been around then that are around now that is acidic?
Just has acid to it. Fruit, oranges,
Lemon juice, right?
lemon juice, oranges,
Yeah.
tangerines. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, vinegar.
Yeah, I mean they had definitely had access to it for sure, but I think what's
Exactly.
really crazy about it is that the thinking behind it, like, can we put these two together, see what happens?
Right. Like, how much science did they have back then?
Right.
There were some brilliant people in the ancient times that we, again, overlook
Well,
and we poo-poo it.
you would have to be to have such a vast culture like the Greeks or the Romans or
There's temples over there where there's no, when you're building these temples and pyramids, like, you have torches and stuff, that flame is gonna leave, the smoke on the
like the
ceilings, the
residue
walls,
and like yeah.
the residue. There's a lot of them where they don't have that.
Right. Yeah, I was looking into that, especially in Egypt for sure. Like
Well,
they were
yeah,
talking
because
about the whole like light bulb thing that we were talking about earlier before we started the show.
yeah, so, like, what if they had this and then they attached the light bulb to this?
Yeah, depending on how they manufactured the light bulb, but yeah, I agree with you. It would definitely have to conduct something, which you said it was what, 1.1 volts?
Between 1.1
Can you
volts.
look up real quick? Can you look up real quick and see what voltage a light bulb takes, especially like let's call a modern light bulb? What voltage it takes to actually light the bulb itself? Whether I would probably go with like see if you can do incandescent as well as fluorescent just to see what the difference is in voltage. But it can't take a lot. I would have to say it's probably somewhere around there. But that's interesting that we might have had the light bulb before Edison or Tesla. So
I think we had it way before then, personally. So the voltage required to light a light bulb depends entirely on its design, ranging from 1.5 volts
it's
for
pretty damn close.
small hobby bulbs to 240 volts for high-powered household lighting.
So we're talking about 4/10 of a volt
Close.
2000 years ago, which let's be honest, light bulbs are 10 times more efficient, probably 1,000 to 2,000 times more efficient than they were when Edison came back up with it or
Mm-hmm.
Tesla. So that would have been probably, depending on the manufacturing of the bulb or what they used or whatever, as far as like the lighting source, it's pretty close to what we have
Yeah.
now. It's pretty close.
And if you connect multiple jars in a series, it increases the voltage.
Well, yeah, because you're going to have more conductivity for sure.
So,
They could have put two together and figured it out.
yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. But you said that some of the replicas have produced some like small electrical charges, which we just alluded to. Essentially, they were able to like light. I would assume that if you used whatever they manufactured back in the day and they tried to replicate it as they obviously did, that they were able to get the exact same result with modern light bulbs if they put enough of them together,
Mm-hmm.
which is really interesting. This begs the question: could have ancient civilizations have experimented with electricity way before Tesla and Edison?
Yeah, I think they definitely did.
Because we both watched a documentary where they said there wasn't even enough oxygen to supply torches with enough oxygen to be able to be even useful once they got to certain points in those tombs and caves and stuff.
Yep.
So that begs the question, did they have an artificial light source before then that they were able to manufacture with the battery or just in general? So that's interesting. So I guess another question that I wanted to ask you too is, what do you think the danger of fringe theories versus healthy skepticism? Where do you think the balance is? Do you think that like you should live on the edge of a theory and give it some validity even though it could be far-fetched? Or do you think that everything is questionable? Where do you sort of sit on that?
I think everything is questionable. I mean, ask questions. It's okay to be curious. It's okay to have unconventional ideas. Now, like, mainstream doesn't want that. Like, Graham Hancock is a perfect example. Like, that guy gets so much goddamn ridicule when, like, he was talking about Göbekli Tepe before it was discovered and that stuff. Like, he's, mainstream archaeology and education does not like it because, again, people's egos and reputations are on the line and they don't want that shit being rewritten, proven wrong, whatever, no matter how much evidence is out there.
I come down with you on the skepticism thing. I think everything is questionable. I don't think we should ever take things as, I think you should always take things with a grain of salt, no matter what it is. You should always search for your own truth. And that's sort of where I stand just life-wise in general, is that I'm hungry for the information because it's only going to make me more efficient no matter what it is. Even if it's detrimental, even if it's advantageous, it's going to make me a better person no matter what because I'll have the experience, right? I'll have the information. So it kind of goes along with the fringe theory stuff is that they're both sort of the same thing. Fringe theories, you have an idea, but you're sort of pushing the boundary of that idea to see what else is available to you, whether it's information, whether it's a relic, whether it's whatever it is. It makes you more in tune with what's really going on if you have the information, whether it's detrimental or anything else. You at least have the information. So I think with all 5 of these, with what we've talked about, the lost knowledge of history with all this stuff, libraries being destroyed with like the Dead Sea Scrolls, or like you can even call a library, it doesn't have to be a brick and mortar library, it can be a library of text, right? How fragile civilization really is, and like what if we hadn't found these 5 relics, we'd have vastly less information than we do now about everything that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I think the information is more advantageous than not having it. So I don't know. I sort of give me your 2 cents on that as we sort of wrap things up and get into like outro and that kind of stuff. Where do
But yeah,
you
I
sort
mean,
of stand on the relics in general? Do you think they're advantageous? Do you think they're detrimental? Do you sort of sit in the middle?
no, I think they're advantageous. I don't think any of them are. Well, I think if you're going to be open and honest, they're advantageous. I think the only people they're detrimental to are people who
Have something to hide?
are closed-minded and don't want to change because of, again, egos and their wallets and power.
Yeah, I think it has stuff with, I think it also has something to do with they have something to hide, something that's going to be even more detrimental than what we've already found.
Yeah.
So last question before we sort of wrap things up and finish the episode. How much of human history do you think is missing forever? How much do you think it's indescribable? You think it's indescribable? Because that's sort of where I said. I basically feel that I would not be surprised if we're 2,000 years ahead of where we're supposed to be. As far like what I mean by that is there's more history even before what we know that's completely foreign to us. With what we're able to find and how we keep pushing the start date backwards and finding new information and all that kind of stuff, I think we're just going to keep pushing the envelope and we're going to find out some shit that it's going to, maybe not in our lifetime, maybe not in our kids' lifetime, maybe not for another 2,000 years, but we're going to find out some shit that's going to completely flip everything on its fucking face. I want to hear your 2 cents on that just to see if we differ, but I think you'd probably agree with me.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen most likely in our lifetime. Everything keeps moving faster and faster, and we keep learning more and more. I mean, look at the power of LiDAR. Look at how many ancient,
What you
look
told
how
me
many
about like finding all the tunnels and stuff in Egypt.
that, and then also like,
Yeah, what was it
there's
called? Like you told it like the Acropolis or something like that?
yeah, the metropolis down underneath
Yeah.
the Pyramid of Giza, like that's incredible. And again, mainstream archaeology wants to poo-poo that. Yet we have these readings. So, but also like think about the Amazon, like ancient Mayan and Aztec and Inca and stuff like that. Like they're able to rip away the vegetation and see these ancient cities that were once legends have been found now. Roads, highway systems. I mean, the jungle just completely overtook it. They look like mountains. Those are fucking pyramids and temples.
Yeah, we talked about that in a previous episode when we were talking about pyramids. Like,
yeah.
I think there was one in China somewhere where the Chinese government literally said, "You can't go here.
Yes.
You're not allowed up there."
Yep.
There's there's no ifs, ands, no buts, no nothing. You can't go up there. Period.
Yeah, I mean,
after it was speculated that they were pyramids.
Yep.
Only after that fact were they like, "Yeah, nah, that's a no go."
Yep. And not only that, like think about with that LiDAR technology in the different geo mapping technology we have now. You know how many like cities they're finding underwater in oceans?
Well, it's probably vast. We've talked about that too. You want to talk about space as the final frontier? What if it's below us and not above, dog? Like that's what's really fucking crazy is that like
we've
touched on the fact that like space, we know probably so much more about space than we know about the depths of the ocean, and it's probably not even close. It's probably not even close.
I think we have only, I think, and again, don't like quote me on this, but I think it's something like 5%.
Yeah. It's probably
We've
something
we've
astronomical. It's
explored
insane.
we've only explored like 5% of the ocean. We know more about outer space and the moon and stuff
Yeah,
like that than we do the oceans.
100%. And there've probably been to more places in space than we've
Mhm.
ever been in the depths of the water.
Well, dude, there's new creatures they're finding all the time in the Mariana Trench,
Yeah,
like, all sorts of shit.
that's probably the wildest one that we know about as far as how far it goes down, because you can only go to a certain depth and then you can't go anymore.
Mhm,
It's the same thing with like the timeline. Like we've only gone back to what we can figure out. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Like there could be another 2,000 years worth of history that we have no idea about because we don't have any information on it. There could be another Rosetta Stone that we have no idea where it's at. It could be in the Mariana Trench at the very fucking bottom. We have no idea.
Or it could be in the Vatican.
You see what I'm saying though, right?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
understand what I'm saying though,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
that's the crazy part about it, is that we're talking about 5 relics. Maybe there's another 15 that we haven't even found yet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's more relics that, like, we could have made a list of, like, 20 of them,
Well,
but
yeah, I mean, like you said
there's a
before we
ton
started
of
the
them.
show, we could have made one on each one of these.
Yeah. There's a lot of crazy stuff that they've found that are unexplainable.
Yeah, but I think the main thing that we sort of talked about over the episode in its entirety is that maybe the real mystery isn't whether ancient people were primitive. Maybe it's how much they actually knew. That's the crazy thing. And it sort of goes back to what we were talking about just a second ago, is that there could be, we could have a ticking clock on our hands that we don't know about in the future, where everything's going to be tits up and everybody's gone and it's over. There
Well,
could
it
also be
seems
the
to be
flip
like that,
side,
yeah.
where we have 2,000 years worth of history that we have no idea what the fuck happened yet. That's the really crazy thing about it. Do you have any final thoughts before we sort of wrap up the episode and everything?
No, I just, kinda like what I've said throughout the whole episode is think that we don't give our ancient people and ancient civilizations enough credit as to how advanced they truly were and what they knew.
Yeah, I think it's
That's
I think whether it goes forward or backward, I think the information that we would have that we don't have already is going to be it's going to be information, but it depends on perspective and how you take it. I think it
mhm,
could be really detrimental, it could be really advantageous, or maybe it might be somewhere in the middle like myself. Like you asked me, would the Shroud of Turin really change anything about my life? Would it really would it would it be detrimental or positive to me? I think it would be cool to find out it was true, but would it really break everything in my life if it was false? Not really.
mhm,
And not everybody's like that, but again, like I said, my perspective, my opinion is completely different from yours and everybody else's in the world. So what makes everybody, I think that's the really crucial thing to get across. But yeah, if you don't have any final thoughts, we wanted to sort of get some audience engagement with you guys. So what we'll probably do is we'll ask these on air, as well as probably put a poll, because I know we haven't done a poll one of the episodes in a while. So I wanted to sort of pose these 3 questions to you guys. Which relic disturbed you the most? Like what sort of, sent you for a loop, I guess, is the main thing. Which do you believe is authentic? Which one do you think is the most applicable? Like, I think we can both agree, Dano, that probably the Rosetta Stone is probably the most applicable and the
mhm.
one that's been most influential as far as being, something that we can actually prove is true and has actually helped and made things easier. And then which relic should which relic should we cover next, or which episode we should do next? If you guys have an idea, we'll obviously take those into account. As Dano always says, we want your feedback. We want to make sure that you guys are feeling influenced by the show and are able to sort of comment and, on the social media posts, sort of put comments and replies and that kind of stuff and sort of ask us questions or come up with episodes that we can do, because we're sort of coming up with these on the fly. So if there's stuff that you guys want to hear, stuff that you guys want to know about, or stuff for us to sort of dissect, we can definitely do that as well. But, as always, make sure that you guys follow the socials. Like I said, it's just ObscuraCast. So the name of the podcast, whether you're listening on Apple Music and Spotify, make sure you guys listen on both of those platforms if you are not already. Make sure to follow them as well so we can get some more engagement, as well as follow us on X, as well as Instagram if you guys haven't already. But for me and for myself and Dano, we will see you guys on the next episode. As always, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you guys on the next episode. Take care, guys.
See ya.